What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So yesterday I did end up going over like the timeline for the updates in the Crew 2 compared to like Motorfest and like how they did come out like the months apart or how far apart each update was. And in today's video I actually want to go over the size of the Crew 2 updates, and then after that I'm going to go over like the size of the Motorfest updates. Now for the Crew 2 though, I'm basically going to go over like the first 3 or 4 updates in it instead of going over all like 15 plus updates or 10 updates, whatever came out in that. But the first major update for the Crew 2 was going to be the Gator Rush coming out on September 26th. This one actually brought multiple new features into the game, including the hovercrafts. Don't get me wrong, I do know a lot of people aren't the biggest fans of them, but I do know a lot of players also saw this as like a brand new class they can mess around with, and also it's something new to use in a game that you really don't see anywhere. Like, honestly, guys, name another game that has a hovercraft besides the mod that was on San Andreas. I really do not know of other games that have a hovercraft in them. On top of that, though, it also brought brand new vehicles into the game, and also, one of the craziest things I did not even notice at first, it brought the brand new Ace difficulty, so they did end up adding a brand new difficulty onto the events instead of normal and hard. After that, guys, they also added legendary loot into the game as well. 18 new races, new skills, and a brand new season for the Live Extreme series was also added. Now, a lot of players might go, well, like, Block, like, that's not that impressive. Think about this for a quick second here, guys. They actually added gold parts into the game. Now, I do know people are going to be like, well, Block, like, Motorfest is newer, bro. Can't add gold parts into the game. Like, that's not really a good comparison. The reason why I am comparing this, though, is Gator Rush had a lot of stuff in that said update. Like, for example, we did get the hovercraft discipline, which I do know you can obviously hate those and love them. And I do know it's basically like driving a regular, like, mattress on the road with a big fan attached to it. About to head over to Home Depot to see if I can build one. And then besides that, guys, we also got new vehicles. We also got the Ace difficulty and the legendary parts also dropping. And we also got 18 new races, new skills, brand new season on the Live Extreme series. Like, that is a lot of stuff to be dropping in an update around 4 months after the game did end up coming out. And I do know a lot of players are going to go, well, like, those are gold parts. We didn't even have them. We didn't have the harder difficulty on the events. In Motorfest right now, guys, we have a level 5 difficulty on the events, but get this, it legit does nothing besides get you more XP. Like, if you were doing a level 5, it should get you more gold parts. It should give you a bigger bonus on money and the XP on top of it, instead of just giving you like the XP, whereas on the Crew 2, you would have like normal, hard, and then Ace. Normal would obviously give you like the regular green, hard would give you like blue and purple, and then Ace would end up giving you purple, blue, and gold parts, and then you can actually go after like more parts and stuff like that by getting the gold parts, getting sets done easier and stuff like that, and you would also make more money from the events on top of it, plus you'd also get more XP or like icon back then, so it really is going to be a pretty big difference and also a pretty big update that would end up actually making the game even better. But after that, though, I did want to move over to the second update in the Crew 2, which was going to be the King of Mayhem. This update did end up coming out around 1.5 months after the previous update, which is a pretty small window. On top of that, guys, the King of Mayhem also brought us the Demolition Derby class, which I do know it's also going to be a pretty big mix of, like, if you like it, if you don't. But in my eyes, though, it's still going to be a brand new, like, category you can run. And there's also going to be a ton of new races they added. They added, like, Alpha GP events. They also added some other events into the game. They did add like the arenas for the actual like Demolition Derby vehicles. Currently in the Crew 2, name one of the Demolition Derby events. I'll wait. Might be here a while. They did add some Demolition Derby events for those said classes. Drift events, Rallycross events, all Live Extreme Series events as well, guys. Like, there was a lot of stuff in this set update, but one of the things that really came to my attention, though, which I was actually going to make a second video on, they actually added the live battle PvP mode into the game where players could race each other. Currently in Motorfest right now, we have not seen a single PvP update. Really hoping in Season 4 we actually see more of those. And then with this one, they also brought 12 new vehicles, and the other thing that did stand out to me is going to be the live contracts. This actually gave players a shot at being rewarded with in-game premium currency, which is the crew credits, for completing like certain tasks, or back then it was actually going to be like daily challenges and stuff like that, which they did end up removing. Funnily enough, I was going to make a video about that. They did actually allow you to get like your own crew credits and stuff by doing challenges, which I honestly thought was pretty dang awesome, and they did end up removing it, So where you basically only got the crew credits from like the battle pass or the motor pass, which I would say a lot of players weren't too happy about, like being able to buy your own vanities and stuff like that. But I do understand like having to make money from the game somewhere. That way you can actually fund it, make more updates and stuff like that. Like, I get it. But the point of this, though, is going to be the King of Mayhem bringing another vehicle class into the game, also bringing live battle PvP and the live contracts, and all kinds of crazy events being added, like the Alpha GP events, drift events. And one thing I did notice about this, though, is they did end up adding more events to the game, like Rallycross and stuff like that, which everybody wants right now in Motorfest so dang badly, including myself. Like, I would love more off-road events and stuff like that. But the craziest part about this, though, is it was also only going to be the second update in the Crew 2. And then for the final one I did want to go over here is going to be the Hot Shots, which came out on April 24th. The reason why I'm only going to 3 updates is because in Motorfest we are currently only on Season 3, so I can't really judge how the other seasons or the updates will end up turning out compared to the Crew 2 updates. Do stay tuned for those videos though, guys, but the biggest thing about the Hot Shots is it did end up bringing the live summits, and even to this day here in Motorfest we still have the summits, even though they're slightly better and slightly worse in some ways. Kind of aiming toward the worst because of like the changes they did with like the score breaker, also lowering like the scores, and I feel like the overall variety in the summits isn't all that, at least in my opinion anyway, which I do feel like players would end up agreeing with. The other thing they did end up doing in the Hot Shot update was going to be introducing vanity items, so you would have like the colored tires and the like overall like crew smokes or like the tire smokes, thinking back to Grand Theft Auto Online with the crew smoke there. But that was obviously going to be a new thing in the game as well because vanities were never in there, at least those weren't. Now we're going to have the new vanities in the game, also live summits having vanities as a reward, and then all kinds of new vehicles on top of that being added in the Hot Shot update. So I would say right now, I think we can all agree that the Gator Rush, the King of Mayhem, and the Hot Shot updates were honestly pretty dang awesome, all coming out in around, I think it's like 9 months or so, going into like the Crew 2's life cycle, so that's pretty dang impressive. And currently in Motorfest, I think we're coming up to like month 8, at least I think it is. So it's almost pretty dang similar in like the timeline there, but the difference is the overall updates we've gotten. Now, when it does come to Motorfest, though, we do know the initial game did end up coming out on September 14th, whereas, like, the early access came out on September 11th. Now, the thing about this, though, guys, the Season 1 initial thing in the game obviously brought, like, the main stage, had some cool things in there. It also brought the summits, which we do know was in the Crew 2. So, technically, the Season 1 update in that game technically wasn't all that, like, part of it, and it was going to be, like, the main release of the game coming out, like, showing that stuff off. For me, though, the Season 2 thing probably is going to be the biggest content drop for it, at least up until this date. The reason why I do say that, we got the Hoonigan update, which I do believe was actually going to be in December. I think it was December 4th, which technically was around 2.5 to 3 months after the game coming out, which was going to be pretty dang similar to the initial update releasing in the Crew 2. This actually ended up bringing us some dope vehicles like the lovely Hoonicorn. We also got the crazy looking like Audi e-tron looking thing. We got a Chevrolet Camaro and also an upgraded Chevrolet 3100, which is pretty dang insane. But the biggest part of it was going to be the Gymkhana Grid Park on the bottom like left part of the map there, which I would say adding like an entire place like that to drive around, mess around, is probably going to be a fairly popular area. Even heading over there at this day, or even on this day I should say, there is still going to be a good amount of players driving around, messing around in that area, so that's pretty dope. You can actually find yourself drifting around with people and probably making new friends to mess around with, jump into like different events, or who knows, even complete some crew challenges. So I would say the Season 2 update, or like the Season 2 content release in Motorfest, was honestly pretty dang solid for the most part. And one of the cool things about Season 2 for me, though, was the fact that we actually got new events in the game that weren't like everything else. We also got a brand new modifier to like jump around, drift, hit stuff and stuff like that in the event. So that was a pretty cool thing to add into there. The issue I have right now, guys, with Season 3 is one simple fact. They did end up adding a new playlist and stuff, which honestly no one is the biggest fan of. They do obviously have the summits in there. We had some pretty dope collaborations like Black Panther. Absolutely love that he's actually in the game. We also did have some other cool stuff in like the summits and stuff, but besides all that though, they did not add a lot of events into the game that players actually want to do, to whereas if you were looking at something like the Crew 2 updates, they added like 20 new events into the game, all kinds of new races you can do. And I really do feel like at this point, though, it probably is the biggest thing. Like, I want to see more events being added into Motorfest to where, like, we were seeing like 30 or 40 new events being added into the Crew 2. Like, can we please get that in Motorfest, guys? That would be amazing. That's what legit everybody wants, too. Like, I'd like to see some Demolition Derby events or even some main races focused on monster trucks. And please, more events for drag cars. Like, even in those main updates in the Crew 2, they were adding, like, Rallycross events, which we don't have a lot of those. They were adding Alpha GP events. Like, let's get that stuff added. That would be so dang awesome. Now, the only issue is I do think a lot of the events in this game are going to be tied to the playlists. But overall, though, guys, I would like to know your thoughts on this in the comments below. Like, what do you think about these seasonal content releases in Motorfest compared to some of the bigger updates coming out in the Crew 2 releasing all of that insane content? Do you guys think they're taking like a backpedaling type of thing with Motorfest, or are they most likely planning something huge for it?